right, now we're going to think about operations on functions, but we're going to think about it graphically. So let's think about what happens if we're just given a graph and not the equations. So of course I could use my knowledge that we came up with in our last unit and determine the equations of these two things. But let's also just think about it and interpret our pictures. So if I want to sketch the graph of a quadratic plus a linear, well, I know that adding a quadratic and a linear, the only terms that are going to change are the bx plus c over here, because this is only going to have a bx and a c term, because this is linear. So basically what I'm thinking about is that my f of x has some form ax squared plus bx plus c, and my linear has some form, maybe let's call it mx plus, I don't want to use a letter I've seen before, so maybe let's say h. So when I combine things, it's only the b and m that will come together with the x, and my y-intercept is going to change. So let's think about this new picture and what's going to happen. So this a value is not going to change. My quadratic isn't going to get any wider, but it is going to shift. So my new y-intercept, I know that my new y values are going to be the result of adding the y values of f and g. So my new y value is going to be 2 plus 2. So that's going to be up here at 4. And let's think about where I might have 4 again. Well, I could get 4 from adding another 2 and 2, but that doesn't happen at all over here. So I could have something over here. When I have x is 3, I'm going to have 5 as my y value and negative 1. So again, I'm going to have a symmetry there. So I know my axis of symmetry has to be between these two. So it's not that just that I'm going to take this point and move it. So I know that this is 1, so I'm going to end up with a 2. Well, also when x is 2, notice I'm going to have 2 plus 0. So I'm also going to have a 2 there. So it's not just that this got shifted up in any way. It's that my function is being shifted a bit. So my new vertex is going to actually be at x equals 1.5. So let's see what happens there. At 1.5, I have a y value over here that looks like it's about 1.5, but probably not really. And over here, I have a y value that is a half, and that's going to be for sure because this has a slope of 1. So I'm going to be just about at 2, but not quite there. So I'm going to be up here with my vertex. So now I know it's going to be quadratic, and I can follow along. All right, so for which values of x will the quotient be undefined? Well, we know that being undefined with a quotient, that's when my denominator is 0. So for part B down here, that's when g of x is going to be equal to 0. I see that g of x is equal to 0 when x equals 2. So f over g, so this is true at x equals 2. Therefore, f over g is undefined 2. All right, be able to put in all reals as my domain. So my domain is going to be x is an element of reals.